All right, number 4, struggling customer support. So this is one we hear all the time. Externally, customers will be upset about, response rate or useful responses, or they're going somewhere else because they're not happy with the experience. And internally, even more so, there are issues around things being really repetitive, or they can't internally, the sales reps can't maintain the volume of calls they're getting or volumes of requests they're getting. Or there might be workflows that are really inefficient, and that obviously is impacting the user because they're not getting their answers back fast enough. So it's a big problem, and it's a big one to tackle. One way to do that is to map out user journeys to identify opportunities. So this is along the same line as research, where you're really mapping out all of the touch points someone has with your brand and then identifying where there are issues. And you do that kind of externally with a customer, and then you do that same activity internally with all of the people, all of the roles that are involved in managing that, all of the processes, all of the tools, and mapping all of that out. And it matters because customer service expectations are rising. So a third of Americans say they'll consider switching companies after just a single instance of poor service. I think a perfect example of this is anytime I ask someone about their cable or internet provider, they don't tell me about the service. They tell me like the quality of the internet. They tell me about a horrible story of their customer service that they had. It's like that's all they care about, and that's what they're amplifying. It's the quality of the product is not what people talk about. And especially with social media, those voices are amplified, and particularly the negative voices are amplified. People talk a lot more about what they don't like than what they do like. So a way to actually map these out, one of the first things you can do is understand your audience segments. So you identify each of those groups and what their motivators are, how they're different from each other, what different tasks they need to accomplish with your website, and then create things like personas. So personas are sort of creating a pretend person, and it sounds sort of strange, but you create essentially an identity that represents your prioritized user segment. So they have demographics, they have motivators, they have attitudes, they have journeys, and you can use those to kind of refocus. Anytime you're making a decision, focus on the user and bring up the persona and say, does this solve their problem? If it doesn't, then you're making that decision for the business and not for the user. So once we understand who our users are, we can create customer journey maps. And again, that's plotting out the touch points with your brand. Even before they get to your website, understanding where they're coming from, what attitude they're coming in with. So if they're coming in highly stressed, you want that entrance into your website to be something that's clear and concise and trustworthy. Understanding their attitudes and motivations is key. And then even after their experience with the website, what happens afterwards, is there follow-up and understanding what they expect there. And then once you identify all of those touch points, obviously you've got your pain points somewhere in there, and you can optimize for them. So one example is internally, if you have a really inefficient manual workflow that's repetitive and it's taking up people's valuable time when they could be catering to customers, you can automate that digitally. So there's plenty of ways to do it, but looking into automation, like automating a workflow with automatic email notifications or something, that can streamline your process enough to make your customer service better. So that's just one example, but digital certainly can create those enhancements within the customer service experience and internally when you're providing that customer service. And number 5, we're back with Tom Cruise. Big growth goals. So obviously most companies want to grow in some way. And any type of growth, whether it be geographic or expanding your product offerings or going into creating a new line of business, there's inherently some risk involved in that. But with digital, you can mitigate some of that risk. So you're able to scale a little bit more with less risk. Digital business planning solutions can lower product innovation costs by 10% and reduce new product lead times by 30%. So by taking advantage of digital, you're spending less and you're getting to market faster. So one way to create these lower risk products, and the reasons they are lower risk, is by creating things iteratively. One sort of buzzword going around is Agile product development. We won't go in too deep on that, but it's basically, instead of taking a big bet, a big risk, and a big investment on creating a website and going all in and seeing what happens, you can take smaller risks and take smaller bets and smaller investments and create things iteratively. So you're always validating the decisions you've made and reviewing it with customers so that you know the product you're putting out is valuable and will be successful. One thing we'll usually create is called an MVP, so a minimum viable product. And that, again, is iteratively created, and it's just the essentials. So you go live with your website, and it has all of the functionality you need to be successful, but it doesn't have all of the bells and whistles necessarily, and you have those plotted out in your roadmap. So features and functionality have been prioritized down the line to add further on when you have that cash flow to continue enhancing the website. And these are two examples that good stories we can tell, I think, about iteratively creating products for some of our customers, Cap Center and Hippo. So I'm going to pass that off to Mark to share with us.
How's everybody doing? So great segue into a couple of case studies that we wanted to share with you today. Cap Center, most of you have known them for years. They've been around, I guess, about 20 years. Originally started as a mortgage company or refinancing company, and that was their primary goal. So the website presence and their content and their functionality was really targeted at that end goal. So you go to their website, you read the content, it would educate you on rates, how to obtain a loan, financing, and really channel the user to an application process. However, lately, over the last, I'd say 2 or 3 years, they've looked to open and offer a new vertical line of business. So they moved and started offering real estate services along with their traditional financing services. Basically, they've hired real estate agents. They offer significant savings if you bundle both the real estate side of the business and the financing side of the business. However, to support that move, that one-stop shop, if you will, for home buyers or even sellers, you're going to have to update your digital presence. And that's where we came in. To compete in that real estate market, you really have to start moving towards models more like a Zillow or a Redfin, somewhere where you can go online and do all of your house hunting. You can go in and actually search for houses based on how much square footage, how many bedrooms and bathrooms, and what school district are we in. So a lot of the work that we did with Cap Center was to that end, to build out that real estate side of the business. While we were doing that, not only did they move into a new vertical, they were also, and still are also, looking to expand their geographical reach. So to do that, they need to scale. And to do that, they have been working with us and working on an underlying infrastructure. So integrations, the platforms that they're on, back-end systems, all of that had to be kind of rebooted a bit and shored up, because now you're talking about not just a regional exposure, but now we're going to grow outside of the state of Virginia. So we expect web traffic to go up, the number of houses that we're presenting, and the sheer volume of traffic on the site is going to go up. So we got to really shore up that infrastructure. So we're doing that, and we're doing the shoring up of the infrastructure. All of that had to be done in parallel with maintaining their existing website presence. Big part of their business is all about offering financing, channeling those folks into applications. The site can't go down. So we can't be working over here, and we were using iterative development, so we were slowly releasing features. As we release those features, we can't have that site go down for any amount of time. So all of that was pretty much happening at once. So we're expanding the business, we're growing our reach, but we're also maintaining the same level of service online that we've always seen out of Cap Center. So what that resulted in, and some of the things that you see on the screen here, some of those features I talked about. So imagine if you're a real estate agent and you're out with your client, no more are you tethered to your desktop and all that pre-planning and printing out a bunch of stat sheets on a house. You can actually take your tablet with you or even your phone. Or maybe you're just an individual buyer who wants to go out, kind of make your route and check out different houses. We talked a little bit earlier about how important mobile is. So we've taken their web presence and really made it work, not only the functionality, but the responsiveness and the speed. I mean, we're talking about loading literally tens of thousands of records almost instantaneously, along with all the attributes about all those records, so that then you can dive into a map, search on different types of features, let's see what school district they're in, but also we have the ability now to understand which homes are in my price range. So this whole concept of affordability. So with a few key pieces of financial data, we can display, and what you're seeing over there on the tablet is kind of a red, green, yellow. Green representing more of those that really fit within my budget. Yellow and red might be a bit more of a push. So lots of information, again, displayed on mobile, the tablet, the phone, that give the user the ability to go around and really do their own research, find the homes that interest them, and then work with someone like a CAP Center to actually buy the home, do the financing, basically the one-stop shop. So great example of how the web can help a company expand into a new line of business, extend their reach, and bolster their existing line of business to really attract more and more clients to their product. The second example, I think is another good example of how we can use the web to grow our business. A lot of you probably don't recognize this logo up here, but there's a connection here with our friends over at VCF. VCF saw an opportunity to launch a new digital brand and offering on a greatly underserved market in healthcare professionals. Those in the medical field occupy a unique financial space. Despite the opportunity for success, the roadblocks like unreliable cash flow and huge upfront costs limit opportunity. From this came the concept of a new line of business at VCF. Simple, flexible financing for busy medical professionals. VCF began with focusing on the new brand. From the mission, vision, and identity, through the name, logo design, and brand guidelines, Hippo Lending was born. So again, Hippo is a launch of an entire new brand, an expansion into a new line of business for VCF that is exclusively online. Hippo Lending was built on a content management solution with customizations and integrations to meet the needs of both the customers and internal finance team. Integrations with TransUnion as their credit agency and Citrix for secure document storage allow for instantaneous loan pre-approvals that then would roll into application process that is almost entirely online. The site features a calculator, and I'm sure you can't actually see that on the mobile, but the calculator offers folks an opportunity to run different scenarios, to see what type of loan terms they might be or they might qualify for. We go straight from the calculator, roll right into a loan pre-approval process, and then move the person right into a full application process. Again, all most likely not done from your phone. You can investigate from your phone, but it's reasonable to expect that someone could access that process from their tablet, and again, the more traditional desktop. We have complex logic and rate calculations integrated into the website in order to incorporate automation into the workflow process. And then we worked hard on the content itself. It was a team effort to ensure useful and clear language for a process that is often regarded as intimidating and confusing. So I guess a lot of the things that we've seen before, we're seeing more responsive design, nice, clean, not confusing, simple content on web, and we move folks through easy to understand workflow that also helps out the back end and the financial team by integrating with the credit agencies as well as the back end systems to transfer this information over internally and to be able to report on it. I'm going to hand it back over to Lena briefly to talk a little bit about kind of that branding process and how we came up with something like a pink or purple hippopotamus as a logo and hippo as a name.
So yeah, just to, like Mark was saying, expand a little bit on sort of the user experience work we did here. A lot of the things we talked about earlier, we did on Hippo. So we did work in understanding the audience segments and what their needs are and what their pain points are. We created personas, and we created a brand and a mission and an identity that all centers around the user. So and this was a perfect example of guerrilla testing is I talked to my brother who was in medical school, or we talked to a friend who's a doctor and got a feeling for what is a pain for you about getting financing? What's complicated? What don't you understand? What do you avoid? And we really got to understand that they're very busy, obviously, and they want something that's really flexible and really transparent and has sort of a human element to it. So commercial lending for some may be thrilling, but for a lot of people it's confusing and a little dry. So everything we did here was trying to sort of humanize the experience. So everything from our little hippo logo to imagery, typography, design, and then the actual content. We tried to give it sort of anyone could read this and get an understanding of how this process works, where the values are, and how you can use funds like this. Does anyone have a guess as to why we called it Hippo? Yes, thank you. And we didn't plant him. I really didn't think anyone was going to answer that. Good guess. So it's a distant relation, but it's something that's memorable and noticeable, and it's a little bit different from your average, commercial lending concept. Usually they're a little bit more buttoned up, and this one's a little bit more friendly and accessible. So it's been a really fun project to work on. All right, we're going to bring it all full circle now. So last time I'll ask the audience to participate. Did anyone get all of these references or any of them? You can yell them out if you want. Like the first one, you had me at hello. Yes, thank you. Jerry Maguire. What about the next one? Can you hear me now? The Verizon guy, who I think is now the Sprint guy. Yeah. Where's the beef? Wendy's. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? And I won't yell those at you, but they were yelled. Yep. And clearly we have a theme here. Show me the money. Yep, Jerry Maguire. So that's a little bit of fun, but we sort of wanted to integrate some references that are a little bit more interesting and maybe memorable and how they're associated with some of the trends we've seen in digital. So, little review. You had me at hello. First impressions matter. Assess your digital state and your current state, and then prioritize digital in your future with a roadmap. Mobile is taking over, so your site needs to be responsive. Research helps you understand your users. You need to meet your customer service expectations, and usually that means optimizing or automating via digital. And you can take less risk by growing your business digitally. So, thank you guys very much.
Yep.